YouTube? This is Will from Will Development. This is my 292nd weekly update. This week went pretty okay. Still training from home right now, as I'm sure a lot of people are. And Monday was squats. Managed to do 2 sets of 4 with 315, which honestly sucked. It sucked quite a bit, but it felt really good to basically go from doing like essentially 1 or 2 reps at 315 in a session all the way up to 8 in one session. So that felt really good. You know, my strength is obviously starting to come back in that regard, which feels good. And then deadlifted, I think I just ended up working up to a single at like 385 or something like that, just because I was, I'm not focused on deadlift right now. I'm really focused on trying to get my squat up, which I guess in reality I should be focused on my deadlift a little more, since I probably have some comps coming up with deadlift whenever comps happen again. But regardless, it went pretty well. And then Tuesday did a little bit of press work because my shoulder's still just a little touchy, but it is getting a lot better. Essentially the constant pain I was having in the left shoulder is basically gone, or I should say the whole left arm was just in a lot of pain a lot of the time. So that's pretty much gone. Didn't have any pain while pressing. Ended up doing some sets of just pressing and holding, trying to work on that, the lockout more. And I think I worked up to 145 for 3 sets of 5 with that. And so that was pretty good. And did just a touch of accessory work and then just called it. Said, you know what, I'm not in pain. Let's just, let's call it there. This isn't the time to really be pushing it anyway, so figured I'd just play it safe, and it seems to be working out pretty well so far. Then Wednesday did some yoga. Thursday, what did I do Thursday? Thursday was deadlifting and squatting again. Decided to switch things up and do deadlifts first, and did 2 sets of 5 with like 340 something, I think. And then did 1 set of 4 with 365. And that went pretty okay. And then when I went to squat, the back and the hip were acting up a lot, and I said, you know what, let me just do something different that's a little bit lighter. So I did a little bit of front squat work, didn't go to anything crazy, nowhere near my max at all. Just a few sets of 3 at like 135, and then did some did some stone extensions too afterward with, I think, 110 pound stone, or yeah, because the other one's a 160, so it was like 110 pounds, some front extensions, which might as well be front squats too. And then decided that wasn't enough, and so I did some walking lunges with that same 110 pound stone into some I don't really know what I call them. It's a duck walk implement essentially, and I have like 100 something pounds on it. Probably weighs more because of all the rust now, but I just did like sets of 10 with that, and I did it all in a circuit. So it really fires the glute medius. So those tiny little glutes, it really fires those like nobody's business. So I like doing those last because it really just wears everything out. But essentially it's kind of like a sumo deadlift, but sort of a squat too. Yeah, it's sort of like that. So it's a good little finisher for a squat deadlift day. And then today it was really rainy out, so I was hesitant to go outside, but I did manage well in the light sprinkle to do another set of the press holds. Went to 150, and instead of doing 3 sets of 5, I did 4 sets of 4 with 150, so it went up 5 pounds. Did an extra rep if you want to kind of look at it that way. The total poundage is going to be higher, I think. Let me actually figure that out. Let's see, 135 times 5, that, and times that by 3, it's 2,025, and then, this is riveting, I know, me doing math, 50 times 4, and then times that by 4, yes, that is overall quite a bit more poundage, like 300 extra pounds of total movement. I like to do that sometimes, on days, especially right now because I'm not on any specific programming. I like to do that where I just kind of like, you know what, let me try to get total poundage for the day a little bit higher. And that's nothing new. Tons of people use that metric, but it's a good metric if you're sort of feeling off or something like that, and you're like, you know what, let me, instead of trying to hit a heavy weight that I'm probably going to just injure myself on if I try, let me just do a total poundage thing. So instead of hitting like 365 on a squat, like, all right, if I'm just going to hit that for one, really I'm probably not working until like, probably like 330 or 340. It's not really considered like working sets, really. Instead of doing that, maybe just drop it down to even just 315 and do that for like 5 singles or something like that. The total poundage move that day is going to be way higher, and you're going to be eliciting a slightly different response from the body, but at least you got some work in. And again, this is not like, if you program that in, that's great, but it's one of those things where it's like, if the days are just feeling off, there's nothing, in my opinion, wrong with just saying, okay, you know what, let me just go for a total poundage, or even like a total rep thing, That's really good for a lot of body weight stuff, like, all right, I'm going to do 100 push-ups today, or 100 pull-ups in as few sets as possible, that sort of thing, That's just different ways to just increase the volume, which when you're, deloading or just having a really off day, it's kind of, it's not necessarily a bad idea to just say, okay, you know what, let me just focus on volume versus intensity today. Sometimes just, suck it up and just do it. But on occasion, there's nothing wrong with just sort of focusing on volume versus intensity. At least in my opinion. Again, though, sometimes just suck it up and get through it. There are days like that. Everybody has days like that. But today was one of those, like, you know what, let me just try to beat the poundage. I'll cut the reps down by 1, but I'm still doing the same thing. And because there's more weight involved, the intensity is higher, and the frequency, or not the frequency, the volume is also higher. So now next week when I come back in, I anticipate being able to do maybe 4 sets of 5 with that 150, and then the second day I'll bump it up again and do 155 for 4 sets of 4. So, just slowly packing on the weight that way. And then afterward, I decided I hadn't had like a shoulder pump in a really long time, so I just did a bunch of lateral raises in a superset. And I don't have any dumbbells here, so I just took 10-pound plates, started with that. Whatever the first set was, I just stuck with that number. And basically when I got to like 14, I was like, okay, this sucks. And I was like, all right, save that number, do 14 with 5s, then 14 with just 2.5s, and then just 14 with just my arms. From that, I did some band work. I like doing W's a lot, which is essentially where you wrap a band around either your wrist or your hands, supinated grip, and you just kind of keep your elbows pinned to your body and just point your thumbs out like that, but down here. And that's really good for like the rear delts. And then did another set with, this is the reason I'm going into this because it's so fresh in my head. I decided I wanted to do some more lockout work, or overhead stability work, I guess would be more the pinpoint for it. And decided to take at first I did it with just the 40-pound chunk of concrete I have out there. I just put it over my head, locked it out, and then just walked around from one side of the yard to the other, both arms. And I said, you know what, this is challenging, but it's mostly challenging just because it's like unstable. So then I took a 45-pound plate and did that for a couple sets, and supersetted that with both hands overhead. So really just burning out that position. And then when I did a lap with that, took the plate and then just did like 10 curls with it or something. It was just something to just get a little pump in the whole arms and everything. And they worked out really well. It was good to kind of do that random sort of thing. And it's only going to help. So I hope everybody's still managing to get some training in. There's nothing wrong with push-ups and air squats and pull-ups. There's nothing wrong with those things. So, it sounds like everybody's going to be going back to some sort of normal pretty soon. Like I said from the beginning, I'm optimistic and yada, yada, yada. I'm not going to get into my opinions on anything here. That's not what this is for. But I hope everybody out there is still training to some extent and giving their body the break that it may or may not have needed, and maybe working on some weaknesses. Is a great time for that. And if you're not, then what's your excuse?